There's a moment when you realize the people you love have only seen you as a shadow in the room, not the light that kept the house warm. I didn't cry, scream, or beg when I felt the betrayal. I just stood still, letting the cold truth settle in my chest. In that silence, a slow-burning determination replaced the ache. I realized that dignity isn't something you wait for. Sometimes you have to reclaim it for yourself. This is not a story about anger. It's a story about seeing clearly, acting quietly, and changing everything. My name is Eleanor Reed. I'm 63 years old, and for most of my life I was the invisible glue holding my family together. Before we dive in, where are you watching from? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my journey. So let's begin, chapter by chapter, where I show you how one old woman found the power she'd always had and made the world remember her name. I want to tell you about the years before everything changed, when I was just Mom, Grandma, or just as often, not called at all. Eleanor, where's the coffee? Lisa's voice cut through the morning silence as I stirred scrambled eggs on the stove. It's brewing, I replied, not turning around. The same routine every single day for the past 3 years since Frank died. Did you pay the electric bill? David asked from behind his newspaper, not bothering to look up. Yes, honey, like always. Tom wandered into the kitchen, tie half knotted around his neck. Morning, Eleanor. Thanks for ironing my shirts yesterday. I nodded, plating eggs for 6 people. Karen appeared with her coffee mug, already dressed for work. The kids need rides to soccer practice after school, she said, more statement than request. Of course, I said, though I'd planned to visit my cleaning clients that afternoon. This was my life now. 6 of us crammed into the house Frank and I had bought 30 years ago. My eldest daughter Lisa, her husband Tom, their 2 teenagers Jamie and Ruth, my son David, and his wife Karen. All living under my roof, supported by the small cleaning business Frank and I had built together. Mom, can you watch the kids tonight? Lisa asked, buttering her toast. Tom and I want to see a movie. What about me? David chimed in. Karen and I haven't been out in weeks. I can manage both, I heard myself say, though my back ached from yesterday's cleaning jobs. The breakfast table buzzed with their plans, their needs, their schedules. I refilled coffee cups, cleared plates, wiped crumbs. Not once did anyone ask about my day. Jamie, eat your eggs, I said to my granddaughter who was scrolling through her phone. Not hungry, Grandma, she mumbled without looking up. Ruth, you forgot your lunch money yesterday. Thanks, Grandma, Ruth said, grabbing the 20 I'd placed by her plate. After everyone left for work and school, I stood in the empty kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and the lingering smell of bacon. The silence felt heavier than the chaos. I began loading the dishwasher, same as every morning. My phone rang. Mrs. Patterson, one of my cleaning clients. Eleanor, dear, can you come an hour earlier today? My daughter's visiting and I want the house perfect. Of course, Mrs. Patterson. I'll be there by 10. At least someone appreciated my work. Mrs. Patterson always offered tea, asked about my health, remembered my birthday, more than my own family did sometimes. I grabbed my cleaning supplies from the garage. The business, Reed's Reliable, still had a dozen loyal clients, small jobs, but steady income. Money that kept this household afloat, though my family seemed to forget that detail. Eleanor! Lisa called from upstairs. The washing machine's making that noise again. I climbed the stairs, my knees protesting. Lisa stood by the laundry room, arms crossed. "It's probably overloaded again," I said, checking the machine. "Well, fix it. I need my work clothes clean. Fix it. Like I fixed everything else. The leaky faucet, the broken garbage disposal, the squeaky door hinges." Frank used to handle these things, but now they all fell to me. "I'll call the repairman," I said. "With what money?" Lisa asked. I almost laughed. "With my money. From my business. That paid for her groceries, her utilities, her comfort." But I just nodded. "I'll figure it out." That evening, I sat in my bedroom after everyone had gone to sleep. The house finally quiet. I pulled out the old photo album. Pictures of Frank and me on our wedding day, building the cleaning business, buying this house. We'd been so proud, so hopeful. "People only see what you allow them to see," Frank used to say. I'd allowed my family to see me as background noise, the woman who made everything work without being noticed. But somewhere in those old photos, I saw a different Eleanor, one who had dreams, ambitions, her own voice. I closed the album and looked around my room, Frank's side of the bed still empty, his clothes still in the closet. Maybe it was time to make some changes. The next morning started like all the others. Breakfast prep, coffee brewing, the familiar sounds of my family getting ready for their days. "Mom, I need you to babysit the Hendersons' kids this weekend," Lisa announced, checking her phone. "They're paying good money." "I already promised Mrs. Chen I'd deep clean her house Saturday. Cancel it. The Henderson job pays more." I paused, spatula halfway to the pan. "Mrs. Chen is counting on me. So are we. We need the extra income. We. As if Lisa had lifted a finger to earn it. "I'll see what I can do," I said quietly. But as I watched my family scatter to their various obligations, leaving me with another day of invisible labor, something inside me began to shift. Frank's voice echoed in my memory, and I realized I'd been hiding in plain sight for far too long. The words hit me like ice water on a Tuesday morning. "Mom's getting too old to work anyway," Lisa said with a laugh, spreading jam on her toast. "No one hires old women anymore." The kitchen erupted in laughter. Tom chuckled behind his newspaper. David smirked. Even Karen smiled, though she tried to hide it. I stood at the sink, scrubbing the same plate for the third time, my face carefully neutral. "That's not very nice," I managed to say, forcing lightness into my voice. "Oh, come on, Mom. You know I'm just teasing," Lisa said, but her tone carried an edge. "Besides, you don't need to work so hard anymore. We take care of things around here." More laughter. I set the plate down gently, though my hands wanted to slam it against the counter. "Right," I said. "You take care of things." Nobody noticed the tightness in my voice. They never did. After everyone left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold. The joke lingered in the air like smoke. Too old to work. As if my 63 years had suddenly made me useless. As if the business I'd built with Frank meant nothing. I pulled out my phone and called Mrs. Patterson. "Eleanor, perfect timing. I was hoping you could add Thursday to your schedule. My book club is meeting here." "Of course, Mrs. Patterson. Same rate as always. You're a godsend, dear. I don't know what I'd do without you." At least someone valued what I offered. That evening, I retreated to my room early. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the faded wedding photo on my nightstand. Frank smiled back at me, young and optimistic. "They think I'm finished," I whispered to his image. "Your own children think I'm washed up." But Frank had always seen potential where others saw problems. He'd believed in me when I was afraid to start the cleaning business. "You've got more fight in you than you know, Ellie," he'd said. Maybe it was time to remember that fight. The next morning I made breakfast as usual. The family gathered around the table. Same routine, same careless chatter. "Mom, the Henderson. Job fell through," Lisa announced. "Hope you didn't cancel Mrs. Chen." "I didn't cancel her." "Good. We need every penny we can get." There it was again. We. As if Lisa had contributed anything beyond criticism and demands. "Speaking of money," David said, "the car registration is due. Mom, can you handle that?" "And the homeowner's insurance," Tom added. "The notice came yesterday." "Don't forget Ruth needs new cleats for soccer," Karen chimed in. I listened to the list of expectations, the casual assumption that I would handle everything. They discussed my money like it was a shared resource, my time like it belonged to them. "What if I said no?" I asked quietly. The table went silent. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me. "What?" Lisa asked. "What if I said no to all of it? The bills, the errands, the constant demands?" David laughed nervously. "Mom, you're being dramatic." "Am I?" I stood up, untying my apron. "Because yesterday, you all thought it was hilarious that no one would hire an old woman like me. Today you're counting on this old woman to pay for everything you need." Lisa's face flushed. "That was just a joke." "Was it?" "Because it didn't feel funny to me." I walked to the counter and picked up the stack of unopened bills. Electric, water, gas, insurance, property taxes, all addressed to Eleanor Reed, all paid by Eleanor Reed, all benefiting people who thought I was too old to matter. "You want to know something?" I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I am 63 years old. I've been working since I was 16. I built a business from nothing, raised 2 children, and kept this family together through everything. If that makes me old and useless, then I wonder what that makes all of you." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Tom cleared his throat. Karen studied her coffee cup. Even the teenagers looked up from their phones. "Mom, we didn't mean—" David started. "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "You meant exactly what you said. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I left the kitchen, walking upstairs to my room. Behind me, I heard frantic whispers, hurried conversations. Let them worry. Let them wonder. For too long, I'd absorbed their casual cruelty, with a smile. But that evening, Tom knocked on my door. "Eleanor, can we talk?" I opened the door to find him holding a cup of tea, looking genuinely contrite. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "About this morning, about the joke. It wasn't right." I took the tea, studying his face. "Do you mean that, Tom?" "I do. You do so much for us, and we don't say thank you nearly enough. That joke was thoughtless and hurtful. It was a start, a small crack in the wall of indifference that had surrounded me for months. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "Can I ask you something, Eleanor? What did you mean when you asked what we were going to do about it?" I sipped the tea, considering my words carefully. "I meant that things can't continue the way they have been. I won't be taken for granted anymore. I won't be the invisible woman who makes everyone else's life possible, while being treated like a burden." Tom nodded slowly. "What do you need from us?" "Respect," I said simply. "Recognition that I'm not just here to serve everyone else. I'm a person with my own dreams, my own value, my own future to consider." "You're right," he said. "Completely right. And I'll make sure Lisa hears this too. After he left, I sat with my tea and felt something shift inside me. The joke had stung because it revealed how my family really saw me. But Tom's apology showed that not everyone was blind to my worth. Maybe change was possible after all. The dinner party was Lisa's idea. We should show off the house, she announced that Saturday morning. Invite the Kowalskis and the Bradleys. Let everyone see how well we're doing. How well we're doing. I bit my tongue as I started preparing for 12 guests with no warning. Don't worry about the cooking, Mom, Lisa said breezily. I'll order some appetizers. You just handle the cleaning and setup. Just handle the cleaning and setup, as if that wasn't the hardest part. I spent all day scrubbing, polishing, arranging, flowers, and setting up extra seating. By evening, my back ached and my feet screamed, but the house looked perfect. Lisa emerged from her room in a new dress, hair done, makeup flawless. Oh, good. Everything looks great, she said, surveying my work. Thanks, Mom. The guests arrived at 7. I served drinks, passed appetizers, and kept the kitchen running while Lisa played hostess. From the doorway, I watched her laugh and gesture, telling stories about her promotion at work, David's new hobby, the kids' achievements at school. Mrs. Kowalski, a woman I'd known for years, caught sight of me. Eleanor! How lovely to see you! This house is gorgeous. Thank you, I said, wiping my hands on my apron. Lisa, you're so lucky your mother lets you live here, Mrs. Kowalski continued. My mother-in-law would never be so generous. The room quieted. All eyes turned to Lisa, who smiled that practiced smile I knew so well. We're lucky, Lisa agreed. Mom's not getting any younger, but we make sure she's comfortable. It works out for everyone. The words landed like a physical blow. I felt the blood drain from my face. Around the room, I saw sympathetic looks directed my way, the kind reserved for aging relatives who needed to be managed. How nice that you all take care of each other, Mr. Bradley said diplomatically. Oh, yes, Lisa continued, warming to her audience. We handle most of the responsibility now. Mom helps when she can, but we don't want to burden her too much. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. The woman who had spent all day preparing for guests she hadn't invited was being described as someone who helped when she could. That's wonderful, Mrs. Kowalski said, looking directly at me with pity in her eyes. It's so important to have family support as we age. I managed a smile, the same smile I'd been giving for years, but inside something crystallized with perfect cold clarity. Excuse me, I said quietly. I need to check on dessert. In the kitchen, I stood with my hands pressed against the counter, breathing deeply. Through the doorway, I could hear Lisa continuing her performance, painting herself as the dutiful daughter, caring for her declining mother. After the guests left, I cleaned up alone while everyone else went to bed. I stacked plates, wiped surfaces, and put away leftovers from a party I'd made possible, but wasn't really part of. The house was silent when I finally sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. I pulled out a legal pad and began writing. Not a grocery list or a to-do list, but something different. Things I do that nobody sees. Pay mortgage, $2,800 month. Pay all utilities, $400 month. Buy all groceries, $800 month. Handle all repairs and maintenance. Clean the entire house daily. Do everyone's laundry. Manage family calendar and appointments. Provide childcare for Jamie and Ruth. Run Reed's reliable cleaning. 8 clients, $3,200 month income. The list grew longer as I wrote. When I finished, I stared at the numbers. My cleaning business alone brought in more money than David and Karen made combined. The house payments, utilities, and groceries I covered exceeded what Lisa and Tom contributed by thousands. But according to tonight's performance, I was the charity case. I flipped to a new page and wrote a different kind of list. What I want. To be seen as capable, not declining. To be thanked, not pitied. To make my own choices about my time and energy. To build something meaningful for myself. To be treated as an equal family member, not a dependent. I read both lists twice, then folded the paper and put it in my purse. Tomorrow I would start making changes. Real changes. But first I had one more thing to write. Dear Frank, tonight I remembered what you used to say about people only seeing what you allow them to see. I've been allowing our children to see me as weak, declining, grateful for their tolerance. But that's not who I am. You knew that. It's time I showed them. I miss you. But I won't disappoint you by giving up. Love, Ellie. I folded the letter and slipped it into the frame with our wedding photo. Tomorrow would be the first day of a very different life. The change wouldn't be dramatic or sudden. I'd learned enough about human nature to know that shock creates resistance, but it would be steady, purposeful, and absolutely irreversible. Lisa wanted to show off how well we were doing. Soon she'd learn exactly who we really was. The next morning I called Sam Hendricks before anyone else was awake. Sam had been Frank's accountant and friend for 20 years, and he'd been handling Reed's Reliable since Frank passed. Eleanor, good to hear from you. How's the family? That's actually what I'm calling about, Sam. I need to review my finances. All of them. Everything okay? I sat in my car in the driveway, watching my family move around the kitchen through the window. I need to know exactly what I own, what I earn, and what I've been spending on other people. Interesting timing. I was just going over your quarterly reports. Reed's Reliable is doing better than ever. You're up 30% from last year. Really? Really. Eleanor, you're running a successful business. 8 regular clients, perfect reputation, growing demand. You could expand if you wanted to. I'd been so focused on keeping everyone else afloat that I hadn't realized my own ship was sailing smoothly. Can you meet me this afternoon? I want to see everything laid out. Of course. My office at 2. After breakfast, which I served as usual while everyone discussed their plans without asking about mine, I drove to Sam's office. He had spreadsheets ready, documents organized, the full picture of my financial life spread across his conference table. Here's what you earned last year from Reed's Reliable, he said, pointing to a number that made me blink. And here's your monthly expenses, personal versus household. The numbers told a stark story. My business income plus Frank's pension and Social Security gave me financial independence. But I'd been covering at least 60% of the household expenses for my adult children and their families. Sam, what would happen if I stopped paying for everyone else? He leaned back in his chair. You'd have significant disposable income, enough to expand the business, travel, invest for your future. Eleanor, you're not struggling. You're thriving financially. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I want to grow Reed's Reliable, hire more women, take on bigger contracts. But I also want my family to understand what I actually contribute. That's smart business thinking. You know, my wife went through something similar with her mother. Sometimes families need a wake-up call about who's really supporting whom. We spent 2 hours going through scenarios. What if I covered only my fair share of household costs? What if I reinvested my business profits instead of subsidizing my children's lifestyle? What if I treated myself as a businesswoman instead of just a mother? One more thing. Sam said as I gathered the papers. I know some women in similar situations, starting over after being widowed, building businesses, dealing with family dynamics. There's a networking group that meets monthly. You might find it helpful. I'd like that. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Excitement about my own future. I'd been so busy managing everyone else's life that I'd forgotten I had one of my own. That evening, David approached me in the kitchen. Mom, Karen and I were talking. We want to take the kids to Disney World for spring break, but we're a little short on funds. Could you help us out? I continued stirring the soup I was making for dinner. How much? Maybe $3,000. We'd pay you back, of course. $3,000, nearly what I made in a month from my business. Money I'd previously handed over without question. I'll need to think about it. David looked surprised. Think about it. Yes, I have my own financial planning to consider now. Since when do you have financial planning? I turned to face him fully. Since always, David, I run a business. I have investments, retirement planning, tax considerations. Just because I don't discuss it at the dinner table doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I didn't realize. That's becoming a pattern in this family. A lot of things you don't realize. Later that night, I called Mrs. Patterson. Eleanor, dear, how are you? I'm well, Mrs. Patterson. Actually, I'm calling with some good news. I'm expanding my business and I'd like to offer you additional services. Maybe grocery shopping, light cooking, organizing. Oh, that sounds wonderful. I've been dreading grocery shopping with my arthritis acting up. Perfect. And Mrs. Patterson, I'll need to adjust my rates slightly. The business is growing and I'm bringing on additional staff. Of course, dear. You're worth every penny. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with Sam's spreadsheets and started making plans. Real plans. For a real future that belonged to me. The next morning, Lisa found me at the computer, working on a business plan for Reed's Reliable's expansion. What's all this? She asked, peering over my shoulder. Business planning. I'm hiring 2 more women and taking on commercial accounts. Mom, don't you think you're getting a little carried away? You're not 25 anymore. I saved my document and turned to face her. Lisa, sit down. Something in my tone made her comply. Yesterday, I met with my accountant. Do you know how much money Reed's Reliable made last year? She shook her head. I told her. Her eyes widened. Do you know how much of this household's expenses I cover every month? I told her that too. She went pale. The woman you think is getting too old to work is not only working successfully, she's supporting most of this family. The question isn't whether I can handle expanding my business. The question is whether this family can handle me putting my own future first. For once, Lisa sat quietly for a long moment. I had no idea, Mom. I know. But now you do. The changes started small, like adjusting a recipe 1 ingredient at a time. Mom, the electric bill's on the counter. Lisa called from the living room that Tuesday morning. I looked at the bill, then walked into the living room, where she was scrolling through her phone. It's addressed to you and Tom, I said, handing it back. She looked confused. What? The electric bill. It's in both your names now. You'll need to handle it. But you always... I always paid the whole thing. Now I'm paying my share, 1/6 of the bill, since there are 6 of us living here. Lisa stared at the bill, like it was written in a foreign language. How much is that? About $45. The total is $270. And the rest? The rest is divided between you and Tom, David and Karen. 2 couples, 2 shares each. Mom, we can't afford. Then you'll need to figure something out. Use less electricity, pick up extra work, adjust your budget. That's what adults do. I went back to the kitchen, my heart pounding but my hands steady as I packed my cleaning supplies. Behind me, I heard Lisa frantically calling Tom. Tom, you need to come home. Mom's lost her mind. By the time Tom arrived home from work, I was already at Mrs. Patterson's house, scrubbing her bathroom and listening to her tell stories about her grandchildren, normal, peaceful work that people appreciated. Eleanor, you seem different today, Mrs. Patterson said as I organized her medicine cabinet, more energetic. I'm making some changes in my life, Mrs. Patterson, taking better care of myself. Good for you, dear. You've been giving too much to everyone else for too long. When I got home that evening, the house was buzzing with activity. Lisa, Tom, David, and Karen were clustered around the kitchen table with bills spread everywhere. Mom, we need to talk, David said as I walked in. Of course, after I start dinner. No, now. This is important. I set down my purse and looked at their serious faces. What's so urgent? You can't just stop paying bills without warning us, Lisa said. We need time to adjust our budgets. How much time did you give me to adjust to Frank's death, to losing half my income, and all the help with household tasks? The table went quiet. You adapted because you had to, I continued. Now you have to adapt again. But, Mom, Karen said gently, some of these bills are really high. The gas, the water, the insurance. Yes, they are. That's why I've been concerned about the budget for months. But nobody wanted to hear about it when I was handling everything. Tom cleared his throat. What if we made a family budget together? Figured out who pays what based on income? I sat down at the table, impressed despite myself. That's the first reasonable suggestion I've heard in months. For the next hour, we went through the numbers. Really went through them. For the first time in years. When everyone saw the actual costs of running the household, the mood shifted from accusatory to subdued. I had no idea the property taxes were so high, David admitted. Or that the insurance had gone up so much, Karen added. Mom, Lisa said quietly, how have you been covering all this by yourself? I pulled out the Reed's reliable financial summary Sam had prepared. This is how. They stared at the income figures in silence. You make more than I do, Tom said, sounding genuinely surprised. More than both of us combined, David added, gesturing to Karen. Yes, and I've been using most of it to subsidize your lives, instead of building my own future. We didn't know, Lisa said, because you didn't ask. But now you do know, so we can move forward differently. Over the next week, the household dynamic shifted dramatically. Lisa picked up extra shifts at work. Tom started doing freelance marketing projects in the evenings. David and Karen began looking at their expenses more carefully, cutting unnecessary spending. More importantly, they started asking questions. Mom, what do you need from the store? Instead of, can you pick up groceries? Would Thursday work for you to watch the kids? Instead of, I need you to babysit Thursday. How was your day? Instead of silence when I came home from work. Small changes, but they felt enormous. Meanwhile, Reed's Reliable was expanding exactly as planned. I'd hired Martha and Dorothy, 2 women from my church who needed work after their husbands retired. Both were my age. Both had been told they were too old for regular employment. Both were grateful for the opportunity. Eleanor, this is wonderful, Martha said as we finished cleaning the new office building account Sam had helped me land. I haven't felt this useful in years. That's because you are useful, I told her. Age doesn't change that. Dorothy laughed. Try telling that to my son. He thinks I should be sitting home watching soap operas. Families have a way of putting us in boxes that are too small, I said. Sometimes we have to break out ourselves. The new commercial contracts were more profitable and more regular than residential cleaning. Within a month, Reed's Reliable had doubled its revenue. Sam was thrilled. Eleanor, at this rate, you could hire 12 women and handle facilities management for half the office buildings in town. That's exactly what I'm thinking. But the best part wasn't the money. It was watching Martha and Dorothy rediscover their confidence. They stood straighter, smiled more, talked about plans for the future instead of resignation to decline. At home, the changes continued to ripple outward. Jamie started helping with dinner without being asked. Ruth began doing her own laundry. Small gestures, but they showed awareness that I wasn't just a service provider. Grandma, Jamie said one evening as we cleaned up after dinner, Mom said you're hiring more people for your business. That's right. That's really cool. I didn't know you had a business. I paused in loading the dishwasher. What did you think I did during the day? I don't know. Grandma stuff, I guess. Grandma stuff. As if being a grandmother was a full-time occupation that explained everything else I did. Well, now you know. I run a business, just like your parents go to work. Can I see it sometime? Like, go with you to one of your jobs? I'd like that very much. That night, I sat in my room with Frank's photo and reflected on the month's changes. The resistance I'd expected hadn't materialized, at least not the way I'd feared. Instead, my family seemed relieved to have clearer expectations and boundaries. Maybe they'd been as uncomfortable with the old dynamic as I was, but hadn't known how to change it. We're getting somewhere, Frank, I whispered to his picture. It's working. The call came on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing applications from 3 more women who wanted to join Reed's Reliable. Eleanor, this is Jennifer Walsh from Sunset Manor Senior Living. I have an interesting proposition for you. Sunset Manor was the nicest assisted living facility in town, a place where independence met support, where active seniors lived full lives with help when they needed it. We've heard about your cleaning service and the women you employ. We're looking for a company to provide comprehensive support services for our residents. Cleaning, organization, companionship, light cooking, errands. We'd need at least 12 staff members. I nearly dropped the phone. 12? To start. If the partnership works well, we have 2 other facilities that would be interested. We're talking about a contract worth over $200,000 annually. After I hung up, I sat staring at the phone for 10 minutes. This wasn't just business expansion. This was transformation. Reed's Reliable could become a real company, employing dozens of women, providing meaningful work to people society had written off. I called Sam immediately. Eleanor, this is incredible. This contract alone would make Reed's Reliable one of the most successful service companies in the region. Can I handle something this big? Can you? Eleanor, you've been handling complex logistics for years. Managing schedules, coordinating multiple jobs, maintaining quality standards, dealing with clients. The only difference is scale. That afternoon, I drove to Sunset Manor to meet with Jennifer Walsh. The facility was beautiful. Elegant common areas, well-maintained grounds, residents who looked engaged and cared for. We've been struggling to find reliable service providers, Jennifer explained as we toured the building. Many companies see our residents as burdens rather than people. But everyone I've spoken to says your team treats clients with respect and genuine care. That's because we understand what it feels like to be dismissed because of age," I said. "Exactly. Our residents don't want to be coddled or pitied. They want to be treated as capable adults who sometimes need assistance." The tour revealed the scope of opportunity: independent living apartments that needed regular cleaning, common areas requiring maintenance, residents who would benefit from companion services, transportation needs, organizational help. "When would you need an answer?" I asked. "Take your time. This is a big decision. But Eleanor, I hope you'll say yes. I think this partnership could benefit everyone involved." Driving home, I felt giddy with possibility, but I also felt nervous. Was I really ready to become the CEO of a major service company? Was 63 too old to take on something this ambitious? Then I remembered Lisa's joke about no one hiring old women, and my nervousness transformed into determination. That evening, I called a family meeting. "I have some news to share," I announced as everyone gathered in the living room. "Please tell me you're not dating someone," David said with a nervous laugh. "No, though that's not actually a ridiculous idea at my age." I pulled out the contract proposal Jennifer had given me. "I've been offered a major business opportunity." I explained the Sunset Manor contract, the expansion possibilities, what it would mean for Reed's Reliable. As I talked, their expressions shifted from confusion to amazement. "Mom," Lisa said when I finished, This is huge." "Yes, it is. You'd be running a real company," Tom added, "with employees and payroll and everything." "I already run a real company, Tom. This would just make it bigger." Karen leaned forward. "Are you going to do it?" "I'm seriously considering it, but it would mean changes around here. I'd be working longer hours, traveling to meetings, handling more responsibilities. I won't be as available for household tasks or childcare." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "We'd have to step up more," David said finally. "A lot more," I agreed. "But Mom," Lisa said, "what if it's too much? What if you can't handle it?" There it was, the assumption that had poisoned our relationship for months. "Lisa, let me ask you something. When you got promoted to department supervisor last year, did anyone ask if you could handle it? That's different." "How?" I'm younger. You're also less experienced running a business. I've been managing Reed's Reliable for 3 years, handling multiple clients, coordinating schedules, maintaining quality standards, managing finances. The only thing that changes with this contract is the number of people I'll be helping." Tom cleared his throat. "Eleanor's right. She's proven she can run a successful business." "Thank you, Tom. But what about us?" Lisa pressed. "What? About the family? What about you? You're all adults with your own careers, your own responsibilities. Why would my business success be a problem for the family? Because we depend on you." Finally, the truth. Not that I was too old or incapable, but that they were comfortable depending on me and afraid of losing that comfort. "Lisa, you're 38 years old. David, you're 35. You have spouses, children, jobs. At what point do you stop depending on your mother and start supporting yourselves?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. "We do support ourselves," David said defensively. I pulled out the household budget we'd created weeks earlier. "Do you?" Because according to these numbers, I'm still covering more than half the household expenses. I'm still doing most of the cooking, cleaning, and childcare. If you're supporting yourselves, what exactly am I doing? Karen spoke up quietly. You're supporting all of us, and we've been taking it for granted. Thank you for saying that, Karen. So what happens now? Jamie asked from the corner where she'd been listening quietly. Now I make a decision about my future based on what's best for me, not what's most convenient for everyone else. And you all decide whether you want to be part of a family that supports each other's dreams or one that holds each other back. Ruth looked up from her phone. I think you should do it, Grandma. It sounds amazing. Thank you, sweetie. I agree, Tom said. Eleanor, this is an incredible opportunity. We'd be selfish to ask you to turn it down. Lisa looked around. The room, seeing that opinion was turning against her position. I worry about you taking on too much. I appreciate that, Lisa. But I need you to trust that I know my own capabilities. And I need this family to start believing in me instead of just depending on me. The next morning I called Jennifer Walsh. I'd like to accept the contract with a 3-month trial period. Wonderful. When can you start? I'll need 2 weeks to hire and train additional staff. Will that work? Perfect. Eleanor, I'm excited about this partnership. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Pride in my own accomplishments. Not pride in how well I served others, but pride in what I had built for myself. The phone rang almost immediately. Sam calling to congratulate me on the contract he'd already heard about through the business community grapevine. Eleanor, everyone's talking about this. A woman your age starting a major service company. You're inspiring people. A woman my age? You know what I mean. You're proof that career growth doesn't end at retirement age. Maybe that was the real victory. Not just changing my family's perception of me, but changing the community's understanding of what women like me could accomplish. That afternoon, Martha and Dorothy came over to discuss the expansion. 12 more women? Martha asked, eyes bright. Eleanor, we're going to change so many lives. That's the idea. My neighbor Helen has been looking for work since her husband died, Dorothy said. She's only 58, but everyone keeps telling her she should focus on settling into widowhood instead of building a career. Bring her by tomorrow. If she's interested and capable, she's hired. As they left, chattering excitedly about the possibilities, I realized this had grown beyond my personal vindication. Reed's Reliable was becoming something bigger, a place where women's society had discarded could rediscover their value. That evening, Lisa approached me while I was making dinner. Mom, I owe you an apology. I continued stirring the sauce, waiting. I've been treating you like you were declining when you were actually growing. I think I was scared. Scared of what? Scared that if you became too independent, you wouldn't need us anymore. And then what would happen to our family? I turned to face her fully. Lisa, love doesn't disappear when people become independent. It gets stronger. I don't want to be needed because I'm the only option. I want to be loved because I'm choosing to be here. I never thought of it that way. Start thinking of it that way, because the woman who signs that contract tomorrow is the same woman who raised you, but she's also someone who believes in her own future again, and that woman deserves a family who believes in her too. Lisa nodded, tears in her eyes. I believe in you, Mom. I'm sorry it took me so long. The first crack appeared 3 weeks after I signed the Sunset Manor contract. Mom, you missed Jamie's soccer game yesterday, Lisa announced as I rushed through the kitchen, grabbing files for a client meeting. I told you Tuesday I had a Business meeting. You said Tom would cover it. Tom had to work late. Jamie was disappointed. I stopped packing my briefcase and looked at Lisa directly. So, were you disappointed that Tom had to work late? That's different. How? His job is important. And mine isn't? Lisa's face flushed. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. When Tom works late, it's career dedication. When I work late, it's abandoning the family. You're twisting my words. I'm hearing your meaning. The tension that had been building since the business expansion finally erupted the following week. I came home at 7 p.m. after interviewing potential employees to find the family gathered around the dinner table, eating takeout pizza. Oh, good. You're home, David said without looking up. We need to talk about the Henderson situation. What Henderson situation? Their babysitter canceled, and they asked if you could watch their kids tonight. I told them you'd call back. I set down my purse slowly. You committed my time without asking me? It's good money, Mom. $200 for one evening. David, I made $800 today, interviewing staff for 3 new clients. Why would I cancel business development to babysit for $200? Because the Hendersons are counting on you. The Hendersons can find another babysitter. I'm not available. Lisa slammed down her pizza slice. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're becoming completely selfish. The word hit like a slap. Selfish. After decades of putting everyone else first, prioritizing their needs, sacrificing my own goals, now I was selfish for having boundaries. Selfish, I repeated quietly. Yes, you used to care about family, about helping people. Now everything is about your business. I walked over to the table and sat down, looking at each of their faces. Let me tell you about my day. I interviewed 6 women who need work. Patricia, whose husband died and left her with no savings. Helen, who was laid off at 55 and told she's too old to hire. Margaret, whose children moved across the country and assumed she'd just disappear. The table was silent. I hired all 6. They start Monday, with full-time hours and benefits. By the end of this month, Reed's Reliable will employ 18 women who were told they had no value. But you think I'm selfish because I won't drop that work to babysit someone else's children for pocket change. That's not what I meant, Lisa said, but her voice was quieter. That's exactly what you meant. When I existed solely to serve this family, I was virtuous. Now that I serve a larger purpose, I'm selfish. Tom cleared his throat. Eleanor, I think what Lisa means is... I know what Lisa means, Tom. She means she wants the old Eleanor back, the one who had no life outside this house, no dreams beyond making everyone else comfortable. I want my mom back, Lisa said, tears starting. The one who was there when we needed her. I'm still here, Lisa, but I'm here as a complete person, not just as your service provider. It's not the same. You're right. It's better. David leaned forward. Mom, we understand you want to work, but this business is taking over your life. This business is my life. It's my career, my future, my contribution to the world. Just like your job is your life, David. Just like Lisa's career matters to her. But we're family, Karen said gently. Doesn't that come first? Family comes first when it's truly family, when it's mutual support and shared responsibility. But what we had wasn't family. It was dependence disguised as love. The room erupted in protests, everyone talking at once. Finally, I stood up. Stop! All of you, just stop! My voice cut through the chaos. I need to tell you something. and I need you to listen without interrupting." They fell silent, surprised by my tone. "For 3 years since your father died, I have been disappearing, day by day, decision by decision. I made myself smaller to make room for all of you. I cooked what you wanted, cleaned how you preferred, scheduled my life around your needs. I paid your bills, watched your children, and absorbed your problems without complaint. I paused, making sure I had their attention. But that woman, the one who existed only to serve others, she was dying. Not from old age or illness, but from invisibility. And if I hadn't started Reed's Reliable, if I hadn't found my own purpose again, she would have disappeared, completely." "Mom," David started. "I'm not finished. The woman sitting here tonight is the woman your father married, the one who built a business from scratch, who raised 2 successful children, who has dreams and ambitions, and a future worth fighting for. If you can't love that woman, if you can only love the version who exists for your convenience, then we have a bigger problem than scheduling conflicts." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Jamie spoke from the corner where she'd been watching the whole confrontation. "Grandma, I think you're awesome. My friends' grandmothers just sit around complaining about their health. You're like an actual person with an actual life. Out of the mouths of babes." "Thank you, Jamie." Tom cleared his throat. "Eleanor, you're right. We've been unfair. Your business success should make us proud, not resentful. It should." "Tom, but does it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm getting there." Lisa wiped her eyes. "I'm scared, Mom. I'm scared that if you don't need us anymore, you'll realize you don't want us either." Finally, the real fear. Not that I was changing, but that I might leave. "Lisa, honey, independence and love aren't opposites. I'm not building this business to get away from you. I'm building it to become someone worth staying with." "What do you mean?" "I mean that the woman who only existed to serve others had nothing interesting to say at dinner, no dreams to share, no accomplishments to celebrate. She was boring, even to herself. This woman, the one who employs 18 people and just landed a major contract, she's someone I actually like being." Karen smiled through her own tears. "We like her too, Eleanor. We just need time to adjust." "That's all I'm asking for. Time and respect." Ruth looked up from her phone. "Mom, you're being ridiculous. Grandma is like the coolest person in this family now. Why are you trying to make her boring again? Sometimes teenagers see things more clearly than adults." Lisa laughed despite her tears. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just never asked my opinion before." The tension in the room began to ease, but I could see this was just the beginning of a longer conversation. Change is uncomfortable, even when it's good change. My family would need time to adjust to the new dynamic. But I wouldn't be going backward. The woman who had rediscovered her worth wasn't disappearing again for anyone's comfort. The confrontation I'd been avoiding for months finally came on a rainy Thursday evening in November. I walked into the house after a long day of training, new employees, to find Lisa sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. "Mom, we need to have a serious conversation." "About what?" "About this." She gestured to the papers. "I've been going through the household finances, and we have a problem." I hung up my coat and sat down across from her. "What kind of problem?" "You're not contributing your fair share anymore." The accusation hung in the air between us. I looked at the papers she'd organized. Utility bills, grocery receipts, mortgage statements, all marked with her calculations. "Show me your math, Lisa." Well, There are 6 of us living here, so everyone should pay 1/6 of the expenses. But you're only paying for utilities and groceries, not mortgage or insurance or property taxes. I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. Okay, 1/6 of all household expenses. Let's see. Mortgage is $2,800, insurance is $400, property taxes are $600 monthly. Utilities average $300. Groceries are about $800. That's $4,900 total, divided by 6. I showed her the screen. $816 per person. Exactly. But Lisa, there's a problem with your math. What problem? Who owns this house? She blinked. You do. Right. So I'm paying the mortgage, insurance, and property taxes on a house I own to provide housing for my adult children and their families. That's not splitting expenses. That's me providing free housing while you contribute to utilities and groceries. But we all live here. Yes, you live in my house. If we're truly splitting expenses equally, then everyone pays me rent for housing, and I use that money to cover the mortgage and property expenses. Lisa's face went pale. Rent? Market rate for a room in this neighborhood is about $1,200. Family rate, let's say, $800. Times 5 rooms, that's $4,000 monthly rental income for me. Mom, you can't be serious. Why not? You want everything split equally. $4,000 in rent, minus $2,800 for mortgage and property expenses, leaves me with $1,200 profit monthly for providing housing to my family. That's not what I meant. What did you mean, Lisa? She shuffled through her papers, flustered. I meant that everyone should contribute equally to living expenses. But we're not contributing equally. You want me to pay the same amount as everyone else, while also providing the house everyone else lives in for free. David walked into the kitchen, drawn by our raised voices. What's going on? Your sister thinks I'm not paying my fair share of household expenses, I said calmly. Lisa, what are you talking about? Mom pays for everything. That's the problem. She's not paying everything anymore, but she's also not splitting costs fairly. David sat down and looked at Lisa's paperwork. Wait, you want Mom to pay the mortgage as a household expense? Everyone should pay their share. Lisa, David said slowly, Mom owns the house. The mortgage is her investment, not our shared expense. But we all benefit from having a place to live. Right. We benefit from Mom letting us live here. That's generosity, not obligation. I watched my children argue about my finances and felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that David understood the situation clearly, sadness that it had come to this. Stop, I said quietly. Both of them looked at me. Lisa, I understand what this is really about. What? You're angry because I'm not subsidizing your lifestyle anymore. For 3 years I covered expenses you couldn't afford, which allowed you to live more comfortably than your income supported. Now that I'm only paying my actual share, you're feeling the financial pressure. That's not... Yes, it is. And instead of adjusting your budget or increasing your income, you want to guilt me into going back to the old arrangement. Tom and Karen appeared in the doorway, attracted by the raised voices. What's happening? Tom asked. Lisa thinks Eleanor should pay the mortgage as a shared household expense, David explained. Tom's eyebrows shot up. The mortgage on Eleanor's house? It's the family home, Lisa said defensively. It's Mom's house that she generously lets us live in, Karen corrected. Lisa, this is insane. Thank you, Karen, I said. Is it insane? Lisa stood up, her voice rising. Is it insane to want my mother to prioritize her family over strangers? There it was, the real issue. Strangers? I asked. The women you hire, the clients you serve, the business that's become more important than your own children. Lisa, those women aren't strangers. They're women like me. Women who were told they had no value, who were written off by their families and society, women who needed someone to believe in them. What about believing in us? I've been believing in you for 38 years. I believed in you when you dropped out of college, when you couldn't find work, when you moved back home with your family. I believed in you so much that I sacrificed my own future to support yours. And now I believe you're capable of supporting yourself. I believe you can pay your own bills, make your own decisions, live your own life. Isn't that more respectful than treating you like children who need constant rescue? The kitchen fell silent except for the sound of rain against the windows. Tom stepped forward. Eleanor's right, Lisa. We've been acting like entitled teenagers instead of grateful adults. Grateful? Lisa turned on him. Grateful for what? For 3 years of free housing, subsidized living, childcare, and household management, he said firmly. Eleanor has been supporting our entire family while building her own business. The question isn't why she's changing the arrangement. The question is why we ever thought we deserved it. Lisa looked around the room, seeing that opinion had turned completely against her position. So what now? She asked, deflated. Now we make a choice, I said. We can continue living together as a family that supports each other's goals and contributes fairly to shared expenses. Or we can separate households so everyone has complete control over their own finances. You'd kick us out? I'd give you the independence you clearly want. If you can't accept living in my house under terms that work for everyone, you're free to find housing that suits your preferences. David cleared his throat. Mom, what would fair terms look like? I pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Everyone pays their actual share of utilities, groceries, and household supplies. About $300 per adult, $150 per child. Everyone contributes 2 hours weekly to household maintenance. Everyone manages their own schedule and responsibilities. That's it? Karen asked. That's it. No rent because this is family. No subsidies because you're adults. Just fair contribution to shared costs and shared work. Tom nodded. That sounds completely reasonable. It sounds like we should have been doing this all along, David added. Lisa sat back down, looking defeated. What if we can't afford it? Then you make the same choices every other adult makes. Pick up extra work, reduce expenses, or find more affordable housing. But what about the kids? What about family? Dinners and holidays and... Lisa, family isn't about who pays the bills. It's about who shows up with love and respect. Those things don't change based on financial arrangements. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. I'm scared, Mom. Of what? Of not being able to manage on our own. Of you not needing us anymore. I reached across the table and took her hand. Honey, I've never needed you to need me. I've always just needed you to love me. And love works better between equals than between dependents. Can we try it? The new arrangement? Of course. We're family. We figure things out together. Ruth wandered into the kitchen, surveying all the serious adult faces. Are we still going to live together? Do you want to? I asked her. Yeah, it's nice here. Plus, Grandma's cooking is way better than Mom's. Even Lisa laughed at that. Then we'll work it out, I said, as a family of equals. 6 months later, Reed's Reliable had grown beyond anything I'd imagined possible. 23 employees, contracts with 4 senior living facilities, and a waiting list of women who wanted to join our team. But the real transformation wasn't in the business. It was in my house. Eleanor, the Henderson account wants to add window washing to their weekly service. Martha told me as we reviewed schedules in what used to be Frank's den and was now our official office. Can Helen handle that along with her regular duties? She says yes. Helen's been amazing with the physical tasks. Yesterday, she reorganized an entire storage room that the previous cleaning service said was impossible. I smiled, remembering how Helen had been told by 3 different companies that she was too old for physical work. At 58, she was outperforming cleaners half her age. Speaking of Helen, Dorothy said, looking up from the computer where she'd been entering client notes. Her daughter called yesterday. Wants to know if we're hiring in Phoenix. Apparently, Helen's been bragging about her job. The ripple effects kept spreading. Women calling from other states, asking if we'd consider expansion. Adult children finally seeing their mothers as capable professionals rather than declining dependents. Mom, dinner's ready, Lisa called from the kitchen. I looked at my watch, surprised. 6:30 already? Time flies when you're changing the world, Martha said with a grin. The dinner table looked different these days. Everyone contributed to the meal. Lisa had made the main course. Tom brought salad from the good deli. David and Karen contributed wine and dessert. Even Jamie and Ruth had set the table and prepared drinks. How was everyone's day? I asked, as we settled around the table. Good, Tom said. I got 2 new freelance clients this week. The extra income should help with Christmas shopping. I might get promoted to floor supervisor, Lisa added. It would mean more hours, but better pay. That's wonderful, honey. What about you, Mom? How's the business empire expanding? I laughed at her choice of words. 6 months ago, she'd called Reed's Reliable a hobby that was taking up too much of my time. Now she referred to it as an empire. We're considering opening a branch in the next county. Sam thinks we could handle the expansion without compromising quality. That's amazing, Grandma, Jamie said. My civics teacher wants you to come speak to our class about entrepreneurship. Me? Yeah. She says you're a perfect example of how anyone can start a business at any age. Ruth nodded enthusiastically. And my career counselor wants to interview you for the school newsletter. She says you're inspiring other older women to pursue their dreams. I felt that familiar glow of pride, but now it was mixed with something deeper. The satisfaction of knowing my success was creating opportunities for others. Speaking of dreams, David said, Karen and I have been talking about maybe starting our own business. Karen's really good with social media marketing, and I know enough about bookkeeping to handle the financial side. What kind of business? I asked. Digital marketing for small businesses, Karen explained. There are so many local companies that need help with online presence but can't afford big agencies. That sounds perfect for you two. Have you written a business plan? We're working on it. Actually, we were hoping you might look it over when we're done. Give us some advice from someone who's been there. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. My children were asking for my business advice. They saw me as someone worth learning from. I'd be honored to help. After dinner, as we cleaned up together, Tom pulled me aside. Eleanor, I owe you an apology. For what? For taking so long to see who you really are. For treating you like the family caretaker instead of recognizing you as an accomplished businesswoman. Tom, that means a lot. I mean it. Watching you build Reed's Reliable has been inspiring. You've shown all of us what determination and vision can accomplish. Later that evening, I sat in my office reviewing contracts for the next day. Through the doorway, I could see my family in the living room. Lisa helping Jamie with homework. David and Karen planning their business venture. Ruth and Tom watching a documentary about marine biology. Normal family life, but healthier. Everyone contributing. Everyone respected. Everyone with their own goals and purposes. My phone rang. Sam, calling with the weekly revenue report. Eleanor, I have news. Reed's Reliable just became the most successful woman-owned service business in the Tri-County area. Really? Really? Your annual revenue is now higher than companies that have been operating for decades. But more importantly, you're employing more women over 50 than any other business in the region. After I hung up, I sat quietly, in Frank's old chair, surrounded by the evidence of what we'd built together. Photos of the Reed's Reliable team, certificates of appreciation from client facilities, newspaper clippings about our success story. But the best part wasn't the recognition or the money. It was the transformation I saw in every woman who joined our team. Women who walked in feeling invisible and discarded, who left each day knowing they were valued and capable. Frank, I whispered to his photo on my desk. Remember when you said I had more fight in me than I knew? I think we proved you right. A knock on my office door interrupted my reflection. Lisa stood in the doorway looking hesitant. Mom, can we talk? Of course, honey. Come in. She sat in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where clients now sat to discuss their needs. I want to tell you something I should have said months ago. What's that? I'm proud of you. Not just for the business success, but for who you've become. For standing up for yourself when we were taking you for granted. Thank you, Lisa. That means everything to me. I realize now that I was scared of losing the mom who took care of everything. But the mom I have now, the one who runs a successful business and employs dozens of women and still makes the best Sunday dinner. She's so much more interesting than the one who just worried about everyone else. I reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. I love you too, honey. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think it's too late for me to find my own purpose? Something that's mine, not just about being a wife and mother? I smiled, remembering asking myself the same question 2 years ago. It's never too late, Lisa. The question is, what do you want to build? 2 years after that first joke about no one hiring old women, I stood in front of 300 people at the Regional Business Awards ceremony, holding a crystal trophy that read, Entrepreneur of the Year. When I started Reed's Reliable, I said into the microphone, I thought I was just trying to prove that I still had value. I didn't realize I was proving that all of us still have value. In the audience, I could see my family in the front row. Lisa, beaming with pride. David, taking photos with his phone. Tom and Karen, applauding enthusiastically. Jamie and Ruth, looking impressed that their grandmother was on stage receiving awards. This recognition isn't just mine, I continued. It belongs to every woman over 50 who was told she was too old to matter, too old to contribute, too old to dream. Reed's Reliable now employs 42 women, ranging in age from 52 to 78. Together, we provide services to 12 senior living facilities, 30 office buildings, and over 200 private homes. The applause grew louder. But the real success isn't measured in revenue or contracts. It's measured in the phone. Calls I get from daughters who tell me their mothers are standing straighter, speaking up more, planning for the future again. It's measured in the women who walk into our office feeling invisible and leave knowing they're invaluable. After the ceremony, we celebrated at the nicest restaurant in town. The whole family, plus Martha, Dorothy, Helen, and Sam, the core, team that had made everything possible. To Eleanor, Sam raised his glass, who proved that the best businesses aren't just about profit, they're about purpose. To Grandma, Jamie added, who's way cooler than any of my friends' grandparents. To Mom, Lisa said, her voice thick with emotion, who taught us all that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. As we toasted, I looked around the table at these people who had become my chosen family, some related by blood, others by shared vision and mutual respect. Martha leaned over and whispered, Eleanor, my granddaughter is doing a school project about successful women. Can she interview you? Of course. She wants to know how you found the courage to start over at your age. I thought about that question as the evening wound down. How had I found the courage? When had the shift from victim to victor actually occurred? Maybe it was the morning I stopped accepting Lisa's joke as truth and started seeing it as a challenge. Maybe it was the day I called Sam and demanded to see my real financial picture. Maybe it was the moment I realized that dignity wasn't something other people could give or take away. It was something I had to claim for myself. Later that night, at home in my office, I pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Not a business plan or a budget, but a letter. Dear women who think it's too late. My name is Eleanor Reed. I'm 65 years old, and 2 years ago I thought my useful life was over. My family saw me as a burden. Society saw me as invisible, and I saw myself as a relic of better days. I was wrong. We are all wrong when we accept other people's limitations as our own truth. I wrote for 2 hours, telling the story of Reed's Reliable, but more importantly, telling the story of rediscovering self-worth. When I finished, I had the outline for a book, not just about business success, but about the journey from invisible to invaluable. The next morning, I called a meeting with my core team. I want to do something new, I announced. I want to write a book about our experience, about what it means to be told you're finished and finding the courage to prove everyone wrong. That's brilliant, Dorothy said. Think of how many women need to hear this message. We could donate proceeds to organizations that help older women find employment, Helen suggested. Or start a scholarship fund for women over 50 who want to start businesses, Martha added. As we brainstormed, I realized that Reed's Reliable had become something bigger than a cleaning service. It had become a movement, proof that society's assumptions about aging and worth were not just wrong, but dangerous. That afternoon, Jamie came to my office after school. Grandma, I need to ask you something for my career exploration project. What's that, sweetheart? If you could go back and talk to yourself when you were my age, what would you tell her? I thought carefully about her question. I'd tell her that your worth isn't determined by how much you sacrifice for others. I'd tell her to build something that belongs to her, something that would last even if everyone else disappeared. And I'd tell her that the best time to start becoming who you're meant to be is right now. But the second best time is whenever you realize you've been settling for less, Jamie wrote furiously in her notebook. That's really good, Grandma. Thank you, honey. Can I ask one more thing? Of course. Are you happy now? Like, really happy? I looked around my office, at the awards on the wall, the photos of our team, the business plans for future expansion, the letter I'd started writing to women who needed hope. Yes, Jamie, I'm really happy. Not because life is perfect, but because life is mine. That evening, as I prepared dinner with Lisa, our New tradition of cooking together on Sundays. She asked me a similar question. Mom, do you ever regret the years when you were just focused on taking care of us? No, honey. Those years taught me about love and commitment and sacrifice, but they also taught me that you can love people without disappearing into their needs. But I'm trying to learn that balance with my own kids. You'll figure it out. The important thing is recognizing that you have your own life to live alongside being a mother. Is that why you encourage me to pursue the promotion at work? I encourage you because I want you to have choices. I want you to know that you're capable of supporting yourself, achieving your own goals, being proud of your own accomplishments. Lisa smiled. I got the promotion, by the way. I start as floor supervisor next month. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Mom. And thank you for showing me what's possible. That night, I sat in my bedroom with Frank's photo, updating him on our progress. The house is still full, Frank, but it's different now. Everyone contributes. Everyone has their own dreams. Everyone treats each other with respect. Lisa is becoming a leader at work. David and Karen launched their marketing business, and it's already profitable. The kids are learning that adults can change and grow at any age. I traced his face in the photograph with my finger. I think you'd be proud of what we've built. Not just the business, but the family we've become. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Ruth peeked around the door. Grandma, can I show you something? Of course, sweetheart. She sat on the edge of my bed, holding her laptop. I wrote an essay about you for my English class, about how you inspired me to think differently about getting older. She read, aloud, My grandmother taught me that life isn't about counting down the years until you become irrelevant. It's about counting up the ways you can make a difference, no matter how old you are. She showed me that 63 isn't the end of anything. It's just another beginning. Tears pricked my eyes. Ruth, this is beautiful. I want to be like you when I grow up, Grandma. Strong and independent and not afraid to fight for what I believe in. You already are like that, honey. You just need to remember it. After she left, I pulled out the letter I'd been writing to women who felt invisible. I added a new paragraph. The greatest gift of reclaiming your dignity isn't what it does for you. It's what it teaches the people watching. Your children learn that strength doesn't diminish with age. Your grandchildren learn that dreams don't have expiration dates. Your community learns that experience and wisdom are valuable assets, not outdated liabilities. 3 years after starting Reed's Reliable, I stood in the ballroom of the downtown convention center, looking out at an audience of 500 women. The first annual Never Too Late conference was about to begin, and I was the keynote speaker. Ladies, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the microphone. How many of you have been told you're too old for something important? Every hand in the room went up. How many of you believed it? Most hands stayed raised, accompanied by rueful laughter. Today, we're going to change that story. Together. Over the past year, Reed's Reliable had expanded to 3 counties. We employed 68 women ranging in age from 50 to 79. But more importantly, we'd inspired similar businesses in 12 other states. Women were calling from across the country, asking for advice on starting their own senior-focused service companies. The conference was Martha's idea. Eleanor, she'd said 6 months earlier, we're getting so many calls from women who want to start businesses like ours. Why don't we teach them how? Now, looking out at the eager faces in the audience, I knew she'd been right. This wasn't just about cleaning services anymore. This was about a fundamental shift in how society viewed older women. The first workshop begins in 10 minutes, I announced. Helen Martinez will be teaching turning life experience into business assets. Dorothy Chen is leading Marketing Yourself After 50. And Martha Williams will cover building teams that support each other. As the women dispersed to their chosen sessions, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Lisa stood behind me, wearing a professional blazer and carrying a portfolio. "Mom, I just wanted to thank you." "For what, honey?" "For showing me what's possible. I start my new job Monday." "New job?" She grinned. "I'm the new regional training coordinator for my company. They created the position specifically for me after I pitched them a program for developing leadership skills in employees over 40. "Lisa, that's incredible. I learned from the best. You showed me that age is an asset, not a liability." During the lunch break, a woman in her 70s approached me. She had silver hair and kind eyes, but I could see the uncertainty in her posture. "Mrs. Reed, my name is Patricia Douglas. I drove 3 hours to be here today." "I'm so glad you came, Patricia. What brings you to the conference?" "My husband died last year and my children think I should move to assisted living. They say I can't take care of myself anymore." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "But I don't want to be taken care of. I want to take care of others. I was a nurse for 40 years before I retired." "What would you like to do?" "I want to start a companion service for elderly people who want to stay in their homes. Medical support, meal preparation, transportation to appointments. I know there's a need, but my children think I'm crazy." "Patricia, you're not crazy. You're experienced, qualified, and motivated. That's exactly what every successful business needs. But I'm 71. And I was 63 when I started. Age isn't a barrier. It's a credential." I spent the next hour helping Patricia outline her business plan. By the end of our conversation, she was sitting straighter, speaking with confidence, making notes about next steps. "You've given me hope," she said as we finished. "You've given yourself hope. I just reminded you it was there." Eleanor Reed's new book, Never Too Late: Reclaiming Your Power After 50, has hit number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. I stared at the phone in disbelief. My publisher, Sarah, was calling with news I'd never expected. "Number 3? Are you sure?" "I'm looking at the list right now. And Eleanor, the response has been incredible. We're getting interview requests from major television shows, podcasts, magazines. Everyone wants to hear your story." I hung up and immediately called Martha, Dorothy, and Helen, my original partners who had become co-authors of the book. "We did it," I told them when we gathered in my office that afternoon. "We actually did it." "It's not about the bestseller list," Dorothy said thoughtfully. "It's about the letters." She was right. Every day brought dozens of letters from women who had read the book and found the courage to make changes in their lives. Women starting businesses, leaving toxic relationships, pursuing delayed dreams, standing up to family members who had dismissed them. One letter particularly moved me. "Dear Eleanor, I'm 58, and my family has been pressuring me to retire from my job as a high school math teacher. They say I'm too old to connect with teenagers. After reading your book, I realized I've been letting their doubts become my own. Yesterday, I signed up for a graduate program in educational technology. I want to prove that older teachers can be just as innovative as younger ones. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to fight back. Sincerely, Margaret Chen." These letters were the real measure of our success. Every woman who found, her voice was proof that our message mattered. The book also brought unexpected reconnections. My cousin Julie, whom I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, called to tell me she'd started a catering business after reading about Reed's Reliable. A former neighbor wrote to say that my story had inspired her to go back to college at 62. Most surprisingly, I heard from women I'd worked with decades earlier at Frank's cleaning service. Women who remembered me as quiet, accommodating Eleanor were reaching out to congratulate the confident businesswoman I had become. "You were always strong," one of them wrote. "You just finally let the rest of us see it." "Grandma, will you come to career day at my school?" Jamie, now a senior in high school, stood in my office doorway with a permission slip in her hand. "You want me to speak at career day?" "Yeah. I want to show everyone that entrepreneurs come in all ages. Plus, you're way more interesting than the usual lawyers and doctors they bring in." A month later, I found myself in front of 30 17-year-olds, telling them about Reed's Reliable and the importance of never accepting other people's limitations as your own truth. "But what if you try something and fail?" asked a girl in the front row. "Then you learn something valuable. And try again. The only real failure is not trying at all, because someone told you that you couldn't succeed." A boy raised his hand. "My mom is always saying she's too old to go back to school. She wants to be a nurse, but she thinks 45 is too late to start over." "Tell your mother about my friend Patricia, who started her companion care service at 71. Age isn't a barrier. It's experience waiting to be applied." After my presentation, several students approached with questions. But what surprised me most was the number who wanted to talk about their mothers, grandmothers, and older female relatives who had dreams they'd abandoned. "You've given me a lot to think about," the teacher told me as I packed up my materials. "Not just about business, but about the messages we send to young people about aging and possibility." That evening, Jamie helped me sort through the thank you notes from her classmates. "Grandma, reading these notes, I realized something." "What's that, honey?" "You didn't just save yourself when you started Reed's Reliable. You saved all of us." "What do you mean?" "You showed Mom how to stand up for herself at work. You taught Dad that he could start his own business. You proved to Ruth and me that women can be strong and independent at any age. You changed our whole family's story about what's possible." I thought about her words as I prepared for bed that night. She was right. The ripple effects of reclaiming my dignity had touched everyone in my circle. My family had learned to see older women, including their future older selves, as capable, valuable, and deserving of respect. 5 years after Reed's Reliable began, I received a call that brought my journey full circle. "Mrs. Reed, this is Janet Morrison from Morrison and Associates. We're a headhunting firm specializing in executive placement." "I think you have the wrong number. I run a cleaning service." "Actually, Mrs. Reed, I'm calling because of your cleaning service. Our client is a national corporation looking for someone to head their new senior workforce initiative. They want someone who understands the challenges and opportunities of employing older workers. Your name came up repeatedly in our research. You want to offer me a job? We want to offer you a position as Vice President of Seniors, Workforce Development, with a salary that's probably triple what you're making now, plus equity and full benefits." I was quiet for a long moment, absorbing this unexpected turn. "Can I ask how you heard about me?" "Your book, your conference, your business model. You've become the go-to expert on senior employment issues. Companies are finally realizing They've been wasting a valuable resource by pushing out older workers. I'm honored by the offer, but I'm not sure I'm ready to leave Reed's Reliable. Think about it. You could impact thousands of older workers instead of dozens. You could change corporate policies across entire industries. That evening, I called a family meeting to discuss the opportunity. "You should take it, Mom," Lisa said immediately. "This is huge." "But what about Reed's Reliable?" I asked. "Mom," David said gently, "you've built something that can succeed without you. That's the mark of a truly successful entrepreneur." Martha, Dorothy, and Helen agreed to take over day-to-day operations. "Eleanor," Martha said, "you've taught us everything we need to know. Reed's Reliable will be fine. Besides," Dorothy added, "think of how many more women you could help in this new position." 2 months later, I was sitting in a corner office on the 30th floor of a downtown skyscraper, reviewing proposals for senior hiring initiatives across a Fortune SIO, 500 companies, national branches. My assistant knocked on my open door. "Mrs. Reed, there's someone here to see you." Patricia Douglas walked into my office, looking confident and professional, in a tailored suit. "Patricia, how wonderful to see you." "I wanted to thank you, in person. My companion care service now employs 15 women and has a waiting list of clients. But more importantly, my children finally see me as someone who builds things, not someone who needs to be taken care of. I'm so proud of you. I'm opening a second location next month. And Eleanor, I want to ask you something. Anything. Would you consider being on my advisory board? I could use the guidance of someone who's been where I am." I smiled, thinking about how the woman who had once felt invisible was now being asked to advise other entrepreneurs. "I'd be honored, Patricia. On my 70th birthday, my family threw me a surprise party. But this wasn't just family. It was everyone whose life had been touched by the journey that began with a thoughtless joke about old women. Reed's Reliable employees, past and present, were there. Women from the Never Too Late conferences. Corporate executives I'd worked with. In my new position, Patricia and her team from the companion care service. Jamie, now in college studying business and social entrepreneurship. Ruth, who had decided to become a social worker specializing in aging issues. 7 years ago, Lisa said, standing to make a toast, our family made a terrible mistake. We took for granted the strongest person we knew. We assumed that because Mom had always taken care of us, she didn't need anyone to see her, appreciate her, or believe in her dreams. The room was quiet, listening. Mom didn't get angry. She didn't yell or make demands or threaten to leave. She just quietly started building something beautiful. She showed us that dignity isn't something you ask for. It's something you claim for yourself. To Eleanor, Martha added, raising her glass, who proved that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. To Grandma, Jamie said, who taught me that age is just the number of years you've been accumulating wisdom. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the back porch with Frank's photo, updating him on our progress, as I'd done every year since he passed. Frank, remember when you used to say I had more fight in me than I knew? I think we proved you right. But more than that, I think we proved that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the oak tree we'd planted together 40 years earlier. It had grown tall and strong, its roots deep, its branches reaching toward the sky. Like dignity, once planted and nurtured, it had become something that couldn't be shaken by any storm. I thought about the letter I'd been writing to women who felt invisible, now expanded into a book that had changed thousands of lives. I thought about Reed's Reliable, still thriving under new leadership. I thought about my new position, where I was helping major corporations recognize the value of experienced workers. But mostly, I thought about the simple truth that had started it all. Everyone deserves to be seen, valued, and respected, regardless of their age. The porch door opened behind me. Ruth, now 22 and graduating from college with a degree in gerontology, sat beside me. "Grandma, I've been thinking about something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Aunt Lisa had never made that joke about no one hiring old women?" I considered her question carefully. "I think I would have found my way eventually, honey. Maybe it would have taken a different catalyst, but I believe that when you're ready to change, life provides the opportunity. Oh, I'm glad it happened the way it did. Why? Because now I know that it's never too late to stand up, speak out, and build something meaningful. You taught me that age is just accumulated experience waiting to be applied." Ruth leaned against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her. "Grandma, yes. When I'm 70, I want to be just like you." I smiled in the gathering dusk, thinking about the invisible woman I'd once been, and the legacy I was leaving behind. "Ruth, honey, when you're 70, I hope you'll be exactly like yourself, just with more years of experience to draw from." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, I whispered one final update to Frank. "We did it, love. We proved that it's never too late to reclaim your power, restore your dignity, and change the world." The oak tree rustled its agreement, strong and rooted, reaching always toward the light. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, forwarded from my publisher to my home address. The return address was from a small town in Oregon I'd never heard of. "Dear Mrs. Reed, my name is Susan Martinez. I'm 74 years old, and I just wanted you to know that your book saved my life. 3 years ago, my daughter told me I was becoming a burden and suggested I move to a memory care facility. I wasn't showing signs of dementia. I was just lonely and had stopped taking care of myself after my husband died. I felt like my useful life was over. Then I found your book at the library. I read it in one sitting, and something inside me woke up. The next day, I called the local animal shelter and asked if they needed volunteers. Now I run their senior pet adoption program, matching older dogs with older people who need companionship. Last month, I was featured in our local newspaper as Volunteer of the Year. My daughter called to apologize and to tell me how proud she is of what I've built. I'm not writing to thank you, Mrs. Reed. I'm writing to tell you that your courage gave me permission to find my own courage, and I want you to know that it's still rippling outward. 3 women in my volunteer group have started their own projects after hearing your story. We're never too old to matter. Thank you for proving it. With gratitude, Susan Martinez." I folded the letter carefully and added it to the box where I kept all the similar messages that had arrived over the past decade. Hundreds of them now, from women who had found their voices, started businesses, left unhappy situations, or simply learned to value themselves again. At 75, I still worked part-time as a consultant, helping companies develop age-inclusive hiring practices. Reed's Reliable had grown into a regional company with over 200 employees. The Never Too Late conference was now an annual event in 12 cities. But the real measure of success wasn't in the numbers. It was in the letters like Susan's. It was in the knowledge that standing up for my own dignity had somehow given other women permission to stand up for theirs. Jamie, now a successful entrepreneur herself, often brought her young daughter to visit. Last week, 4-year-old Emma asked me, Grandma Great, why do you have so many books with your picture on them? Because I learned something important, sweetheart, and I wanted to share it with other people. What did you learn? I picked her up and settled her on my lap, looking out at the oak tree that had grown even taller and stronger over the years. I learned that it's never too late to bloom, Emma. No matter how old you get, you always have the power to grow into something beautiful. She considered this seriously, as 4-year-olds do. Will you teach me how to bloom when I get old like you? I hugged her close, thinking about all the women who were still out there, feeling invisible, believing they'd missed their chance to matter. I'll teach you how to bloom right now, sweetheart, because the best time to start believing in yourself is today. Outside the window, the oak tree's leaves rustled in the afternoon breeze, its roots deep and strong, its branches still reaching always toward the light.